Today's lesson, 2.1, is an estimation challenge. In this lesson, you'll be asked to estimate how many steps it would take you to walk to a particular location. What information do you need to know in order to make the estimation? Well, the first thing you need to know is approximately what is the length of your step. If you are casually walking at your normal pace, not running and not heel-toeing it, but just a casual step, you'd measure from the top of your front foot to the top of your back foot. We're going to call that your footstep. And then the second thing you need to know, how many feet are in a mile? We know that's 5,280 feet. And third, how many miles is it from Santa Barbara to the destination that we're going to choose? And I picked San Luis Obispo just because it's someplace relatively nearby that you may have heard of. So let's say that we went ahead, we did the measurement, and the length of your step was 2 feet from the top of your foot to the top of your back foot. So we're going to go with that number of 2 feet for the length of your step. And let's say that we want to know how many steps it would take to walk to San Luis Obispo. All right, so remember those three things we need to know. The measure of your footstep, which is 2 feet, that there are 5,280 feet in a mile, and it's about 96 miles to San Luis Obispo. So let's use that information to help us figure out how many steps it would take to get to San Luis Obispo. For every mile, that's 5,280 feet from Santa Barbara to San Luis Obispo. It is 96 miles. To calculate how many feet it is to San Luis Obispo, I need to multiply 96 times 5,280. And I'm actually going to go ahead and do the calculation just as a review in case you want to refresh your memory on how to use a standard algorithm for multiple digit multiplication. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to fast forward to it actually. Okay. So I usually write the bigger number first. It makes it a little bit easier. And then just notice that I'm moving along, multiplying the 6 by all 4 digits on the top number. And now a really important step there, I'm adding that 0 as a placeholder. And then I move over and then I multiply the 9 by each of those 4 numbers. And once I've done that second number, now I'm going to add up both rows there. Add them up. And there you have it. So let me just pause that for a second. So we were calculating, by doing that multiplication, the number of feet that it is to San Luis Obispo. Not the number of steps, but the number of feet, by taking the miles and multiplying that times how many feet are in a mile. So now we're going to take that number that we just calculated, 506,880, we're going to divide that by 2, which is the number of feet in your footstep. So I've just listed there on the left. I'm going to again walk through the steps of long division in case you wanted to a review of that. So I have on the left there, I'm just going to bring my mouse over here so you can see that I have divide, multiply, subtract, check, and bring down. So those are the steps. You're going to keep coming back to those steps. So the number in the house there, sorry about that. Start a little bit lower. Is 506,880. That's the dividend. I just wrote 2 over there on the left outside the house. That's the divisor. And our answer is the quotient. So I'm going through the process. I'm just going to pause that for a second. So right there, I went to the first step here, divide. And I said, how many times does 2 go into 5? That's the dividing part. And I say 2 times. So the next step is multiply. So I'm going to say 2 times 2. I'm going to take the answer to that, which is 4, and subtract it from the 5. So that's my next step, subtraction. And what I have left is a 1. The real important thing here is I want to check and say, okay, what am I checking for? I'm checking to see, is that 1 less than the divisor, which is 2? And it is. So I'm clear to go ahead and bring down the next number. If it were not, however, if I had a number after subtracting that was larger than my divisor, that would tell me that, uh-oh, I made a mistake because that number could have gone in at least one more time. But in this case, we're fine, so we bring down the next number, and that makes it 10. So now I'm going to go back to the top here, and I'm going to say, how many times does 2 go into 10? And 2 goes into 10 5 times. So now I'm going to subtract. And when I do subtract, go ahead and draw that line. There you go. I subtract, I get a 0, which is less than 2, so I bring down the next number, which is 6. And now I go back to the top again. 2 goes into 6 3 times. So I'm now going to multiply 3 times 2. That's my second step. And the answer is 6. So I'm now going to subtract 6 from 6. And right there I go to the next step, which is checking. And yes, 0 is definitely less than 2, so I can bring down the next number, which is the last step. And I'm back to the top again. 2 goes into 8 4 times. 2 times 4 is 8, so I subtract 8, I get 0. It is less than 2, so I bring down the next number. And I do the same process again. Oops, move that out of the way. And you had a 0 down there. So the number of steps would be approximately 253,440. So what if you walked around for 1 minute and discovered that you took 100 steps in that minute? Could you estimate how long it would take you to walk to San Luis Obispo? So again, this number here represents how many steps it would take to get there, and this number represents how many steps it would take you to walk in a minute. To convert minutes, oops, I think I skipped a step. Yes, I think I did. So I would take that number, 253,440, and I would divide it by 100. And I don't really even need to do the long division because we know that the shortcut for dividing by 100 is come to the very end of the number and move the decimal point 2 places to the left. And if you were to do that, you would have about 2,534 minutes. That's how many minutes it would take you to get there. Well, we don't usually talk about how long does it take to get someplace in minutes. So how could we convert those minutes to hours? We would take the 2,534 and divide it by 60 because that's how many minutes are in an hour. I think that's what's happening on the next slide. Let's see. Yes, to convert minutes to hours, we take that number and it would come out to be about 42 hours.